Well, just downloaded the Action 25 Deluxe package. Going to cover some of the features on it. Had a few requests lately to walk through some different things with images, ballparks, etc. that people have messaged me about. But the 2025 just dropped, and I thought I'd fire it up and take a look at what do we have. Now, I've got our league up here that we've been running, so I'm going to look at that as well. But here's also the 2024 baseball file. And I know some folks from our league may be joining us to go over that, but I'm just going to walk through some of the game goodies. One of the first things I did, and people will ask, is how I set up all my ballpark images for the pictures I wanted, and I got all my layouts done. Wow, what do I do now? Uh, it's very easy. The first thing you want to do is, if you've got 2024 or maybe a previous version, leave it there. Install the new game, because what'll happen in your directory is there's two places it'll sit. All my stuff's on my C drive, but there's always a DK Sports data folder for all the games you own that have folders for each game, and will keep different things for your uniforms and your custom logos, right? But the game executable file itself will sit in your program file area, and you can see there I've got baseball 2024, which I'd been playing with. Now I got baseball 2025. So you'll notice in baseball 2024, there are 3 park related files. Let me go into this. The first one is called, right here is called park layouts. It is exactly what it says. It stores all the marker placements for your photos in the parks. The other ones is parks, which has all the data, meaning the information, the ballpark versus lefty and all that based on year. And then the other one is park user. And the park's user is what photo do you have assigned to be the image for that park in the game. So I have all that set up in 2024. What's up, Jeff? Welcome in. So since I've got that all set up in 2024, the easiest thing you do is when you have 2025 open right here, you say import. And one of the things you can import, it says park information from previous game edition. You open it up. And one of the easiest things you do is you make sure you get the folder where your stuff was. Typically, it'll be the last baseball one you have. So you go to baseball 2024 and you select these two. I want to bring in my park layouts, which are your markers. I want to bring in my photo assignments, which means what photo do I use for each park? And you hit import. Here we go. Now I'll go to my season where we have specific images set up for the league that I happen to be playing in. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And I can come over and see that. There's Forbes Field I'm assigned to. Come over here, and I know this Chicago team, they're in Kaufman. I know St. Louis here is sitting in Arlington Stadium. So those images and the markers for them came in. It's that easy. Nothing else to it. Now, you could import other stuff, but there's no reason to unless, well, I'll say there's no reason to, because in 2025, Action upgraded some of the old data for ballparks that's been missing or was additionally researched and brought in. But if you wanted to also bring in, let's say you had created some baseball parks that were fictional or whatever, you could then say, I want to bring over the park information. And then if you wanted to bring over the factors from certain year periods for a park, if you're into creating parks and all that, you could select this. But I'll bet you for most people, it's I want my layout markers and I want to have the photo for each park assigned. It's that easy. Just select where your last edition was that you had it, click those 2 buttons, hit import, and it's done. I know people have a ton of trouble with that, and there's great tools in the game to do it. The other thing I will point your attention to is user mods. There's a lot of user mods if you wanted to bring in historical colors and different things, and there is an about mods section right here. probably one of the best things if you've never looked at the About mods is it gives you great information on other issues that people always have. My logo isn't sticking. Okay, well, there's a 20 character limit. So there's so much information in here on how do the player photos work? How come I selected a subfolder and I don't see them? Things like that. It explains how to place a subfolder so that you can have each league you open up can have its own league specific photo pack, which is great if you're doing year by year. Shows you where you can select that. How to assign photos, the formatting, uniforms, victory songs, stadium, custom stadium sounds, ballpark photos. Everything's here. The other nice one is it'll give you an example of how do you lay your markers out? And it gives you a perfect example right here of where to put your markers so that your animations in the chalkboard will work out well. So if you haven't noticed it, it's been in there for a few editions, I believe. It talks about user mods, how you can create them and then be able to export them for other people to use, how to zip photos, how to share it with others, how to assign it. So if you're into, wanting to do a bunch of mods, learn about ballpark markers, this is a nice small PDF document that will give you some good tips. Very, very important. And again, that one sits under user mods, about mods. The manual is always under help. There's baseball manual, 2025 edition. No doubt in here, he's added a new thing in here for some of the ratings. He's redone some of the way the game calculates ratings, their salary value, and added WAR. So there's the manual if you want to read that. Most people don't, but sometimes you go back and refer to it later. I'm going to highlight some of the things. I did beta testing for this, so I'm familiar with some of the additions, and then I'll fire up and do a little gameplay here showing off a league game with us so that you can see the animation. Okay. Excuse me while I get a drink of my beer right here. Here we go. Let's open up a roster of a team. Now you're looking at a league that we're in, so if anybody out there that watches this wants to get involved in a great all-time greats league with a twist, I'll drop when I post this. I will put a link to our Discord. Feel free to come on in, join us, ask around, talk to us. It's a blast. It's a fun league, but it's made up of all-time greats. It's a keeper league, and then you get to select your keeper, whether they go forward in their career or back. It's a blast. So this is the file we're using. I'm going to pull up one of the teams here, the Lancaster Fighting Amish. And what you'll notice now is there's a few tabs up top here if you look at a roster that are different. We've seen this one before, Bio, where it shows the park. And since this is a all-time greats league, this is a great view to show you what your league's made up. So you can see on this team, the Jim Bottomley that's here is from 1929, and it'll show where the real ballpark was, since this is a draft league of all-time greats. This has always been there. If you're running a replay, you should see the same year, same park, because you're going to run it as is. 1929 or whatever would have all the real teams. Info is the new tab. The cool thing here, you can cycle it by batters and pitchers, is this. It's a different view right here to be able to see some of the injury status, how many games out, but now it's a place to see the values. And the values, I'm going to pull up as you go in, the game will pop up with new information about it. I've noticed that. And let me just put in here. One of the things is the action WAR rating is different than if you went over and looked at Baseball Reference. What it says is it's using real stats that are normalized based on the year, park, left-right split adjustments, and the newly upgraded DKS ratings. Okay. WAR is for display purposes only. It's not used in determining play results, but it's a good indicator if you're looking around for talent, etc. Right? So now we've got a rating system here to give you kind of an overall rating of that player and a new salary value for him. And then now we also have WAR. And where this comes into play is I think it really is going to help a computer manager draft better because a couple things have been added to the draft that these will play into. So if you're going to do a draft and draft players, and we take a look at the general managers, something that's new here is you've always been able to select for computer managers in a draft, the preferences for what they would value, right? Do you want them to really be above normal and looking at starting pitching, relief pitching? The other interesting thing, if you're in a keeper draft league, would be now you can select age preference, meaning you might have two players that are equal, or maybe they're both similar ratings, but you want the computer manager to go for somebody that's maybe a little bit younger because this league is going to carry those players on into the future. So that computer manager can then put a little bit more realistic logic on that. So what I'm sensing from this is with these additions for the computer manager, redoing the rating system, adding a WAR rating, adding a revamped value and that rating system altogether will enable the computer manager to make much smarter draft decisions. So that's new. It's pretty good stuff. The other thing, we go back to the roster screen. In our league, we submit manager files if people want to, and we do a lot of simming where we let the computer play a game and we'll broadcast games on YouTube or quick sim and do a variety of that. So we really rely on the computer manager. So right here, you can take a look at some of the upcoming things if you're rotating lineups and all that, or you can go in here to the view manager setting. This is an easy way to go in there and set overall strategy for your team if you want to, pull a pitcher in that. Easy to do right here. One of the other nice things, if you've assigned roles, if I was to pick a player here like Paul Wainer, the manager tab on the player lets me as a team owner or manager figure out how do I want to manage him? Meaning, do I want him, you know what I mean, to try to be in different roles? Here it says don't pull for a late inning defensive sub, don't use, but you could go in here for pitchers or batters and figure out if you wanted somebody to be a defensive sub, how you wanted to use them. Do you want them to have preferred batting order positions versus right or left? Different things like that right here. Same thing for pitchers. If I click on Russ Ford here and look at his manager, we can see here, he's got pinch hit for options. We've got pull after giving up so many runs and starter relief, don't pitch in blowout games. So as you set roles and situational instructions for each player, you can look at these tabs and take a look at who are in bullpen roles for this team, for example, who's in the main rotation. But two new tabs, manage batters right here. This view will let you see all of those decisions on one screen. So for example, here, I can see that Tony Pena is a 2 out of 2 for catcher. That means if we look at the depth chart, Tony Pena is 2 right here. Joe Sewell at third base, he's 3 out of 3, meaning he is the third person listed in a depth of 3. Pinch hit, it says he should be 1 versus left and right, meaning he should be the first option for pinch hitter. And if we go there's Joe Sewell. So what this view gives us now is it's an easy way rather than cycling through players and saying, what role did I have him in? Is he a defensive sub? Am I going to pull him? Now you can come here and see where he is on all the depth for position. If he's listed as a pinch hitter, you can see like what option he would be, and then some of the specifics around whether you're going to use him as a pinch runner, pull for him, or a late defensive replacement, or pull for a defensive replacement. So these two new tabs here are great. I know they'll come in handy in the league that we run because people are submitting manager files, and we'll do like a month at a time before they can submit another one, and they will like to be able to go in here and see what roles they've got assigned to their players. So this is a new view. The other thing, I don't have it working yet, we got career pitching or batting. So if you've got a player here and we had that turned on, we can go to rules here. And I could say display career stats. Now you'd have to be, I may do a show for this somewhere down the road. I did it once to import seasons you've played to create an encyclopedia. But if we turn that on and we've got a Field of Dreams league encyclopedia here. Now I go back, let's look at Lancaster and take a look at career batting. See if we have any, I don't know if we've got any career stats this is pointing to, but this is where you could use these tabs to take a look at a player, their career numbers, for example. So if you've put together an encyclopedia with like 3 past seasons, or you're starting to replay in like 1910 and going year by year, you can compile your encyclopedia, bring in all the data from each year, and then when you're done with your replay, you can import that final league file and create your encyclopedia. And then if you're doing that, this would be an easy way where you could take a look at the players on your team and list the career batting and pitching and team history and so on. See if I can. Yeah, I don't really have a team history on this because we haven't been cycling in encyclopedias that way. Notes, this is where you can go in and edit. A lot of times this is hard coded to match up with players just like their nicknames. But for example, here's Jim Bottomley. It's the stuff you'll see on their player card, notable things if they were league leaders, things like that. What else we got here? That's pretty much the difference right here. Trying to think what else to highlight. I will, when you set up a game to run it, oh, they're set up like all over the place. There are some new options here that you can choose to incorporate on the player displays and video and sound. I have got this up as fast as it'll go because I think on my computer with the resolution, I'm running like 3800 by 1600 on this monitor and that. And when I pull it up fast, it's the setting I like. I don't like it any slower. Your mileage may vary based on what you've got right there. And I was also messing around using the narrator only to do play synopsis. Play by play, some of the settings right there. Box and report, images and that. We are using a cross historical average in our league. Oh, welcome in, Sean. So I'm going to fire up a game and take a look at some of the things. Let's fire up an exhibition here. Who do we have? Who do we want to go with? Let's see. Let's go Lehigh and Chicago. Again, these are all-time great teams, but let the computer select both, and then we're ready to go. So one of the things we do when we broadcast is
pitching for Lehigh. All right. Dizzy, Dean.
So I'm using the narrator. We're testing that out because in our league, we'll occasionally during each simmed month, different folks in our community will go on YouTube and broadcast some of the games. If you see my channel, there's a bunch of those up there for all the seasons we're running. And we just come over here and when we're doing it, hit CPU, and let that make all the decisions so we can control the flow. But you can take a look at some of the animations.
Chance fly to deep left, 1 out.
There we go. And it just gives you a little synopsis.
Strike 3!
BGO struck out, 2 out.
What you see down here in the bottom is the pitch speed on that pitch, on that final pitch. So right there, I've got that turned on. That's a new thing where you can display that. But I'll play along a little bit here so you can see some of the animations.
DiMaggio fly to deep center.
I think out. In the past, some of them
pitching
were fairly
for Chicago, Rube, Waddell.
Recognizable and predictable. I'm seeing less of that. Seeing more of a variation. You'll notice on ground balls in the infield.
Burkhead pop to short, 1 out.
you'll see more of a bouncing move. And I've also noticed in some of the fly balls into the outfield, the icons for certain players ranging to get those. I'm seeing some variation there. I know Action said that they were looking at making that more tied to like a, if the guy's got a good fielding range to match that, arm strength, running speed, trying to match the dynamics of base running and the fielding and all that, um, and ball flight to be a little bit more realistic based on the players on the field.
Alomar singled to left.
If you're ever playing a game and you want to mess with there's the baseball cards, you can always click left on any screen and pull that up. Take a look at who's on the field. But one of the things, if you ever want to change anything with the displays, you can just go to Park Layout here. And like the playing field images, I got smaller. I can just make them no change. You can make them a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. I have found that having the card images, which I like, are nice here, but I don't have them when the animation takes place because I've noticed that if you've got a slower system, that will slow down some of the chalkboard if you keep the cards visible while it animates. And where that option is right here under video and sound. I mean, player displays right here. You'll notice I have the playing fields right here, and I have playing field photos checked. But if I was to come here and check player photo and name right here, then when we do the animation, the cards stay up. And if you notice, you might be able to tell. You notice it's a little bit slower, right? Keeping the cards up than if they disappear during the animation. So again, your mileage
May
may
singled
vary.
between third and short. Alomar to third.
There's McCovey stepping in. There's a fly ball. So now you can see right here, it does slow it down a little. So if you're having trouble and you're
McCovey
like,
fly to
wow,
left.
this seems really
Sacrifice.
slow,
Alomar scored. 2 out. Lehigh 1 Chicago 0.
and you've got your video as fast as it'll go, one thing you could do is start getting rid of some of the images on the field. So let's go back to options, and I'm going to take this off. I'll leave it just like that. We'll play some here.
Strike 3.
Cepeda struck out. 3 out.
Strike 3.
Medwick struck out. 1 out.
Ball 4.
If you aren't familiar with the
Roland
last
walked.
couple editions, the other nice thing is this box right here, which is optional. Under game setup, if you want to show that, I believe it's under rules actually. Probably can't change that while I can play. Yeah, there it is, rules. So what I've got over here is the ability right here under miscellaneous, the play analysis displays. The outcome box is up, and if we go to pull for a bullpen or a pinch hitter, we can see some of the analysis of the player versus the player. You don't have to turn that on. You can shut all that off. The other option you have is once you have it on, I like seeing what the hit percentage chance and all that is. You can click on it, and it will show a different format here, which is the likelihood that based on this situation, a run will score, the average on base percentage, or you click it, and if you want to just see all of that along with the chances for doubles, triples, or whatever. So again, if you don't want to see that, go into rules, miscellaneous, shut that off. Some people don't want to see the outcome box. There we go. We got an error. So where did that the other ones? You noticing these pop-ups when
Roland
something
stole
happens?
second. To third on error.
That's the other thing I've got. So I've got pop-ups here. Let me see where that's at. Player displays. Oh God, I'm trying to think where it is on here. Somewhere. Let's see, game display. There's so many. It's the thing about the game. There's so many options sometimes that as different editions come out, it's tough to keep up with that. I'm trying to think, and it lets you figure out how many seconds it's up. Maybe it's under video. Is it miscellaneous? Yeah, somebody pinged me in the box. You guys probably know where it's at. Oh, right here. Play by play. So you can say, I want those cards to come up and really highlight a play. I've got all the options on here. So if it's a great play, a double, an error, and you can determine how many seconds that pop up that's highlighting that stays on. I think 3 seconds has worked fairly well, and I'm like, yeah, turn it on. It's add some interest to the game. Base hit by Keith
Hernandez
Hernandez.
grounded a single between first and second. Roland scored.
So
Chicago 1, Lehigh 1.
if some people come in thinking, and I know David mentioned this is the biggest overhaul they've done in many years on the chalkboard. Last year with football, when I initially saw it, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought, well, this kind of looks like the chalkboard before. I was a little unimpressed until we started running our league and playing games, and I started watching the accuracy of the throw to like certain receivers, the flow of linemen pulling, and then I realized, oh, some of the changes are very subtle, but they're really nice. In our league, we broadcast a ton of games, so we watch the animations almost exclusively to figure out what's going on. And what I've noticed is now there are some different animations that have added some variety. So if you're looking for, oh my gosh, the chalkboard has been upgraded and there's going to be, visual images of players and all that, that's not there. But the chalkboard itself has got some good improvements in it. There's a hit right here. That one looked like it's going to be hit, but it got by Mays and skipped to the wall.
Boudreau doubled to left center. Hernandez to third.
You can come over here under V if you want to see a video replay, and I've done that sometimes trying to look at some of these new plays. You can see it's a liner. It skips right there. It hits the wall. Mays gets to it. I've seen some other interesting ones where it looks like an easy single. It gets by the outfielder. They have to chase it down, and I can tell those are different from previous versions. See that? If you notice, that ground ball is bouncing. A little bit more pronounced bouncing on that.
Betts grounded to third. Hernandez scored. Boudreau to third. 2 out. Chicago 2, Lehigh 1.
And you may not like this announcer on there. I don't mind it, actually.
Molina grounded to third. 3 out.
And there's the pop-up on a great play, right? But I kind of like the announcer to just
Ball 4.
do a quick synopsis of just what happened on the play before.
Campanella walked.
Strike 3.
Abreu struck out. 1 out.
I have also noticed, maybe in previous versions, you could almost tell, like within the first third of the ball flight, whether
Cross
it
fly
was
to
going to
very
be a
deep
home
right.
run or
2 out.
maybe going to be a fly out or whatever. I've noticed that it's harder to predict some of that now, which I think is neat, adds a little bit of drama.
Smith singled to right center.
Campanella was
Campanella
running
to
on
third.
that one with 2 out. Gets him to third.
Ball 4.
Burkett walked. Smith to second. Alomar fly to deep right center. 3 out.
The other thing I've done is in the past year, I think last edition, I used to play solely 3/4. I went to full screen, and what I noticed is I like the animation, the speed of it, everything, and I'd forgotten how much I really like the 3/4 layout. You can always easily come here with action and just change the 3/4 to full. It'll have a little bit of a different layout. I started liking this. Well, I'd have to change the size of my pictures here, but I started looking at some of the animation, and then
Chance bunted to
it's
the catcher.
on, it
1 out.
disappears, and I thought, you know what? I went back and tested the 3/4, and I thought, I really like the 3/4. I always used to play that way. I think I'm gonna go back and do that. So again, easy to switch back when you're doing gameplay.
Biggio struck out. 2 out.
Just gonna fire through some So you can see hopefully
DiMaggio
some of the
fly to deep
different
center,
animations.
3 out.
That's one right
Mays
there
fly to right,
that I've never
1 out.
seen before. It's subtle, but if you watch it, Mookie Betts is a 10. So he's got as good a range as you can have. And you can see that one dropping in shallow, and you see him coming on contact and making a run for it. That's just a different. We watch the replay. You can see him moving. I'm seeing more examples of that type of movement that would simulate what you might see in a real game. MV, welcome in, random human. And Sean, what do you got? Sean's got the main thing in this is suppose improved computer manager, pinch hitters, bullpen, without having to reach for a team for a replay. Yeah, I'll show you what 2024 looks like as an example after I run some more innings here, Sean, because and I think the after you have 2024 file that I have will show you what the prepackaged season setup is for some of those roles. You could always tweak them to your liking.
Poop.
Oh,
McCovey
beat him
grounded
to
to
the
first,
bag.
2 out.
Must have been a close play. You can always hit V if you want to see a video replay. Yeah, Hernandez beat him to the bag. And you can always hit replay if you want to see what the text replay was here. So again, we've got it on human, and then each time if you could set it and watch the computer play, but for our leagues, are really just like coming over here, going at my own pace, stopping when I want. And if I just hit CPU for the pitch team and then
Cepeda
CPU,
singled to left.
they'll make substitutions based on the manager file and everything, just hitting CPU until you need to
Strike
intervene or you want
three.
to.
Campanella struck out, 3 out. Medwick grounded to short, 1 out.
Great play by Ozzy, so the card pop-up comes up because we got that on. Uh-oh.
Two.
Rolling safe, stretching it for 2.
Roland lined a double to left center.
Another great play by Ozzy.
Hernandez lined to short, 2 out.
There's that grounder. A little more animation on
Boudreau
the
grounded
chop.
to third, 3 out.
So I would say
Strike
there's
three.
nothing
Abreu struck
really
out, 1 out.
obviously dramatic about it, but if you play with the chalkboard a lot, you'll start noticing a different flow with some of the animations.
Cross fly to deep right center, 2 out. Smith singled between first and second.
Poop.
And I do have mine up fast. You could slow yours down. I think I've got it almost at the fastest setting.
Catcher pickoff.
Watch that pickoff attempt here. Smith leaning off the bag.
Ball four.
Burkett walked, Smith to second.
Strike three.
Alomar struck out, 3
So there
out.
we go. I'll move on to some other things, but yeah, there's 4 innings of the play. I've been pretty happy here the last couple of days with this last edition and some of the things where the markers. I've seen some really good. If you notice, my marker settings are set up identical. In the game, you could adjust them. If something's off, you just pull up your park layout. And I've got these set up where I want them, and I've been pretty happy when I've seen balls hit off the wall and bounce off that are doubles. So, once you have your markers lined up, uh, animations shouldn't be wonky at all. So if you ever have any weird animations, first thing you ought to do is go hit your display, hit your park layout, and sometimes I've seen it where sometimes somebody forgot to put like a base, and there's a base hanging out here in the outfield, and they're running weird patterns. So check that out. Let me exit my game here. I'm going to pull up the 2024 season. And for example, now let's take a look at the Yankees. So here's the Yankees 2024 file. Some of these I don't have pictures for because I've made a lot of pictures for all the leagues we run, and a few of these guys are in our league. That's why their pictures are showing up here. But if we go to that info tab, we can see now, does it make, yeah, Aaron Judge, 34 million value in the game, right? These aren't, well, what's funny? I'll bet you these might be real ratings. Let's take a look. All right, yeah. So you could come in here if there are real salary that you're using for some of these seasons. I've got it set to DKS value, which is a system Dave has to um, make sure all this stuff lines up with the rating system. You could go in here and have real ones on as well. I think if I switch this over to real salary, let's go back to New York. And yeah, completely different, right? So real salary, you can see what it was. I guess they're including that in some of the modern seasons. That's pretty cool. For our league, we find it more useful just to have on the DKS value, right? So now that we have that, one of the new things that he included is this WAR rating. So right here on this screen, you can see some important things. Now this is the new rating system. Of course, 10 being the highest. Aaron Judge and Soto are 10s, for example. This is his proprietary thing. I, I think it takes into effect a lot of things, right? That make somebody valuable. How much they played, how they played, you name it. I don't know. I don't know how it's figured. Only Action Headquarters does, but it's right here on this screen. WAR is the new statistic, and again, that is using real stats normalized by year park, lefty righty splits, DKS ratings, and it's a proprietary formula for Dave and Action. Right? It's not used in determining results, but it's another way to be able to evaluate talent if you're looking at a player. Now, I think it's pretty easy to say if you're looking at the value the game gives him, the WAR, and the overall rating, yeah, Aaron Judge has got some value, right? But sometimes you might be looking at players that maybe didn't play the same number of games, you name it, and it's just another addition. And I think that the rating system revamp is going to help the computer manager be smarter when in drafting and along with the ability to lean towards younger players. Pretty interesting. So let's look at the roles. This is an intact season that's been put together by headquarters. We've got some of the dates, and you'll notice that there are real lineups here because it's one of the seasons, a lot of the action seasons. I don't know how far back the real as played lineups go day by day if you want to play with those in your league, but you can see that information here. But when we look at managing batters here, this will tell you. Where's our buddy Aaron Judge? So we can see Aaron Judge is his first position center fielder, right? His second's going to be he's the second backup to right field and DH, and he's fourth in left field. He bats third on the pinch hit list, meaning if we look at pinch hitters, he would be the third option versus lefties. What other things does he have? Never pull for a pinch runner, and pull if you need a late defensive sub. You'd pull him and let that sub come in for him. So here's where you can look at the roles and see if they make sense to you. Same thing with pitchers. Let's take a look at the pitchers. You can see some of these are in like a mop-up role. Pull them if the team's winning. If blowout and they're losing by however many. That's where you can get into. Let's take a look here. Clayton Andrews. You can get in here and start seeing what it's at. Pinch hit 4 when all these conditions exist. Pull after allowing 3. Don't pitch when leading. Always pull when tired. There's so many things you can get in here to try to pull the right lever to have it match up. But a lot of these are set out of the box. I guess it's up to you. Run your replay and see if that's how you would manage the team, or you feel like it's a good setting because you've always got the ability to come in here and edit that to your liking. Some of the other views that people may not know about, I mean, I used it a lot when I do a lot of home brews and creating things, but you can come in here to Aaron Judge, for example. Uh, Another view is you can double click on him and see his card. The other thing you can do is right click on him and say modify player information. And that brings up another view. That allows you to modify things. So you can see what the player notes are. All this stuff is editable, which is one of the reasons why I love Action is, I know there's a bunch of other games out there that are great and do things, but one of the things that I love is the ability to edit and turn it into a sandbox, create players, edit them, do what if projects and that. So this is a great place to come over here if you wanted to edit anything. The other cool feature is you modify the real stats. If you click on this, you can see all the real stats that are here that make up this card that you could edit. And if you ever want to create a league and you don't have stats, like say it's your high school team or whatever, you can always come down here, create a player from scratch, and you can base it on his attributes on real stats right here, right? Or create stats. So what you could do is come in here and say how many games did they play. You can set some of the general ratings about categories and let the game create actual statistical data, kind of reverse engineering. If you want to do some fun fictional projects, or you're trying to do some teams where you know the names but you don't have the data. So this is a nice place to go and get that done. Mike, I already unboxed it and threw it away. Threw the box, the bow, everything away. It's the official out of the box right now. So I haven't noticed a lot different here. I will say that when you pick on the player card right now, this has been there a while, but it has the notes, but it also auto populates. It examines the league file, and I think it does top 20 or so where he ranges. So on this file, it's going to tell us Aaron Judge is overall the third highest average, six in doubles, home runs first, RBI first. This has been there for a few editions now, but you'll notice up here, you're seeing the rating. Now you get the WAR number and the new value. So can't get the chalkboard to work, waste of money. Man, that's Mr. Impaciente, as we would say in Spanish. We got to get Jeff some patience. We'll get him fixed up. The other thing here is baseball cards. So, if you're playing a game and you click on the left, you'll see baseball cards. But for example, if I'm looking at my picture screen right here, I hit baseball cards, it will pull up uh, card options there for me to look at. I think also if I'm looking, let's see, look at rotation or bullpen. I guess it's whatever's displayed up here at this level here. Pitchers, baseball cards. It's another way to pop that box up and take a look at what the cards are. Put it in chat if anybody wants to see any specific things that they're interested in. Random human for me, like I have on screen, are much smaller, even though the setting on the same extra large looks small on 2024. Yeah, it could be. There's two places to check on that, and I'll tell you where that is. If I go to a ballpark, so for example, if you want to get them really big, there's two places to tweak it. In setup, under game preferences, you can pick and choose right here how you want the player to be. So if I set this to extra large and then I go into the ballpark and bump that up, it almost has an amplifying effect one way or the other. So I would say if this is extra small, come to your main setup and tell them the size you want player photos to be, right? And then the second place, so if we bump that up to medium, then if I come into a ballpark, for example, park layout, and I'm playing in one of my Forbes, let's see where it's at. MLB 23. if I'm playing in my Forbes, you'll see here I can even amplify it more. So I could say playing field photo, no change, no change, or I could make it much larger right here. So you can almost get an amplifying effect one way or the other. So I would just say check the field you're on. So if you're in a game, let me go back to our game. I'm gonna hit, you can always go to resume game anytime you exit. Here's this one right here. Oh, wait a minute, this is the wrong game. I'm gonna flip over the season on this one. Let's see, we got, yeah, here we go, August. This one. Okay, so there we go. Now you can see they're a lot bigger. And I could come in here with my main setting of how you want them to show as a start, and then I could come in here and display and hit park layout and make them even better, like playing field, like I got them on much larger here. I can do adjustments in both places, and sometimes if you've done it one way and then the other, you can amplify it, make them, they might be too small for you or just the right size. So my playing field photos right here, no change. That's how they should normally be. If I want them to be smaller or bigger, I can do that here. Same thing with the main photo. I could come here, hit park layout, and the main one is much larger. Just put it at larger. They'll take it down to size. Same thing with the field. If I want to make the field go down a little bit, I can just come here and just make it smaller. And that's probably where I would play, to my liking. But those are the main things. I noticed there are a few options in here on setup where you can choose to have the game display the lineup over here on the right's in tan. I could use team colors, black. This is new. Grass background, so you can play around with it. That's brand new this year. I think I had it on the tan. I like the tan. There you go. A lot of stuff you can do here to move, the scoreboard around, all that good stuff. The other thing, I know I mentioned it earlier, but some people that have hopped on here joined. This is one of the best references in the game that people don't know about. Hit user mods, open the about mods. And this smaller document here will show you most of the things people struggle with, which is, oh my gosh, I can't get a logo to stick, right? Here they are. Good tips here, right? Sometimes it could be the naming convention or the format, like it'll tell you here, it needs to be JPEG. That's good to know, right? The other thing is, where does it go? Well, that's in your DK data baseball teams logo folder. So this one document that's been here for a couple editions, I think, is probably one of the best reference if you wanted to just export it and save it for yourself and read through it. It's one of the best on, how to manipulate photos, troubleshoot why one might not be sticking. How do you auto assign them, based on the format you have here? Is it first underscore last, which is what I use? Is it, last comma, whatever format you're using? This document will help you go through that. And it can also show you whether they're sticking right here. And this screen here is one of the best right here to go view your team. So if we pull up a roster here, pull up Lehigh here, roster tools, player photos, nicknames, and uniforms. And this is a great place to come. And you could run default if they're not showing up, or you could actually click. For example, here's Bobby Abreu, and I can see that I've got a couple options. Like I usually have a couple different photo options. So I could come here and say, oh, I want to use this one. Well, okay, I'll start using that photo for him. So this is a great play to come. If they're not sticking, you can also open up a team, take a look, run the format again to get them to stick. And sometimes you might just have to scroll through and see, okay, why aren't they sticking? And sometimes maybe your picture has a name that doesn't match what's in here. So this is a great place to come. Same thing with nicknames. The game will usually auto-populate known nicknames. There's Campy for Campanella, but you could come in here and easily click on it, edit the uniform number, nickname right there, and make sure there's a photo and it's lined up. So this is a good roster tool screen to be able to cycle through to make sure those have stuck. And there's also a logical available photos here based on the name of the player you're looking at. Like here's Dean. I've got a couple different pictures for him. So to me, to get them to stick, make sure you've followed the right format, but there might be one or two players that maybe you misspelled something or it's off or the format's different. You can troubleshoot that right here. Operator error, Mr. Hunter. Glad you checked that out. So good, yeah, good stuff here. That's one of my favorite screens to operate off of. And I'm trying to think what else. I'm gonna run here in a minute. I just thought I'd come in here with about an hour to spare and just kind of fire this up and let everybody see it. Let me go back to that resumed game that we had. You know, another thing, if you exit out of a game and go back to resume, you'll typically find the last play right here. No, this is not the one I wanted. I think it was a different one. Resume. Oh, Chicago current play. There we go. So here we go. Take a look at some more animations. There's one right there. This is very subtle. This didn't happen in previous versions. You're going to watch Burkett track in on this. Sometimes the fielder would just sit there, but you can see once he sees it's going to be shallow, he makes a move in for it. That's a subtle little change that if you don't play this game a lot, you may not even realize is enhanced.
Molina fly to shallow left, 2 out.
Ball 4.
So again, I think a few people have mentioned
walk.
that before, that having like that information up there. There's a nice little label about Frank Chance has 31 steals that just kind of popped up for information. The other thing is whenever the pitch comes and it's resolved, that pitch gun number up there, meaning he struck out, but it was a 93 mile an hour pitch. So that's a new addition there to have the pitch speed on.
Mays struck out, 1 out. McCovey struck out, 2 out.
I don't know if anybody saw that one. That's one of the new displays. It looks like it's up in the air. It's like, could this drift out as a home run? You don't know. Could he catch
down the left field line.
That's a different extra base hit chalkboard from editions past. Here's a replay on that. Over the head, hits the wall, drops down, throws to the bag ahead. So that's a much cleaner extra base depiction that's not as predictable. There's another one out there. Looks similar at the start, but this one was caught. So
3 out.
A little more suspenseful, I guess. Up the middle through the
DiMaggio
hole.
grounded a single up the middle. Passed ball, DiMaggio to second.
Campanella missed that one. Got under his glove. There's that little more pronounced bounce.
Medwick grounded to the pitcher, 1 out.
I've been testing this the
Roland
last couple
grounded
days,
to second,
and
DiMaggio to
I have
third,
not seen
2 out.
anything yet. I think I've done probably 5 or 6 games. I have not seen anything that looked odd. And again, I would go back and tell you, if you've got something that looks weird, the first place to start is, well, don't click that. First place is to hit the display park layout and make sure that your markers are right, because I forgot to put first base on first base and had it sitting out there in a weird place. I'm like, wow, that's weird. And it was because of my markers. Start there. If your markers are in the right place, then if you see something wonky, I'd say, hey, just let, action know about it and say, hey, this looked a little bit odd, but always check and see if your markers are right. Well, there's an interesting one. Looks like maybe
Hernandez
just a regular
doubled down the
base hit
right field
single.
line. DiMaggio scored, Chicago 3 Lehigh 1.
Ends up being a double. I don't know if he misplayed that a little bit.
Ball 4.
Boudreau walked.
Again, a lot of people will reach out and ask me about photos we have in here. I mean, that's one
Betts
thing.
singled between third and short. Hernandez scored. Boudreau to
Drop it in.
second.
I'll drop it in the
Chicago
chat.
4 Lehigh 1.
Let me do my Discord. This is a somebody has interest in that. You know, we post our photos. I usually load these up to MediaFire, and again, I think I got about 4,000 plus of these all-time great photos because we keep adding them as we have different seasons of our league. But the photos aren't hard, and I'd say if you're having trouble getting the photos to show, go to that mod about mods, and it'll guide you through about anything you want to know.
Molina popped to second. 3 out.
Strike 3.
Abreu struck out. 1 out.
Strike 3.
Cross struck out. 2 out.
Ball 4.
Smith walked.
Ball 4.
Nice. Another thing
Burkett walked.
that's
Smith to
interesting right
second.
here that we can do. Let's see if we can change this mid-game. Okay, Alamar's coming to bat here. I'll just give you this kind of advanced tip if anybody does that. So if we go in to Alamar, let me see who's on the road. Let's get a visiting player. That's kind of fun. Let's do. We'll do Frank Chance and Alamar as a test. So if I go in to Frank Chance, he's on the road, right? So I can hit right click on him, hit modify player, and you can add walk-up music for the players, plate music right here. The other cool thing is I've got a lot of examples here for like maybe walk-up music. Let's see. It'll play up to 9 seconds of it. Let's see what else I got in here. So, yeah, crazy train. So the other thing you can, if you're on the road, is if you've got a hated player, I'm going to put Boo on the road for Frank Chance. Assigned to Chance, perfect. And for Alamar that's at home, home players get walk-up music. So I'm going to go to Alamar and right-click on him, modify the player, go to plate music, and let's take a look at all the stuff I have down here. Let's see what we got. I'm going to assign that to Alamar. Save it. Another feature, if you want to have some fun with this game, there's tons of options to do. So now if I go back to play, hit resume again, into that game, you're hearing Alamar's walk-up music. And where you can adjust that is under video and sound. You come over here and you say, hey, do I want plate music? I think it's 9 seconds. You can do up to 9 seconds. There it is, right? So let's see when Frank Chance comes to play.
Strike 3.
Alamar struck out. 3 out.
Listen to the booing. And that's because I've assigned him when he's on the road. He's a hated player to be booed. So anyway, I had somebody asking about that one time, and I just thought I'd share that because some people don't even know those options are there.
Chance fly to right. 1 out.
So anyway, just a quick kind of rundown of some of the features there. Again, I think the big things are the manager tabs, which in our league is going to be useful because we use the manager file. So I can come right over here for my team, for example, and take a look at manage my pitchers, and I can see all the roles if I do have anybody. Like when I pull them, what I've got them set to do. I can do the same for batters, see where they're at in my depth chart. It's a great view. The other thing that's big, having an info tab that's different from bio, it's info tab, where I can see value, WAR, and rate. That's interesting when you're evaluating players, but all of that new data is going to help that computer manager make some better drafting decisions. I know that was advertised as one of the features. The other thing, if you go to database and you want to just look at that database, for example, here's all the batters in our league. Now over display, I can say, this is a custom report I've created just to look at players, the batting and the ability to field. I can come over here now and select WAR, value, and rating. And now if I want to cycle what's on this disk and look at different things, I can say, hey, let me look at my pitchers. Who's got the best rating? There's This is an all-time greats league we're running here. So you can see there's a lot of tens on here to look at, right? But we can go by value, which is basically created salary, or the WAR rating. So this is all new. You can search by that. I mean, the WAR is new here, but gives you a good indication. So I'll pause for a second here. I'm going to run in a few minutes, but see if anybody's got a couple questions. But again, I would say the most common thing where people are like, "Oh, how do I do that?" Use the import, park information, go to your previous one where you had everything nice and pretty, click on it. I want my layouts and I want my photo assignments. You probably don't want to bring in general park information unless you're really deep into home brewing and you created parks that the game didn't have, and you had custom factors for like a high school league or whatever. But if it's just bringing in stuff that you spent all that time doing the layouts, tell it where the old stuff was. And that's why I never delete. You get a new one, don't delete it. Go right here and say import. Boom. Thank you. And they'll all be there. Now, once you've brought everything in from that old version, if you want to say, I usually leave the last year's version on it, and then when I get 2 years ahead, then I'll go delete that one out of the way because it's nice to be able to go and pull that information in. So it's really that easy. And user mods, about mods. Pull this thing up, read it. It'll walk you through so much on how to assign custom sounds, ballpark images, logos, how to get them to display, the subfolder if you want to have specific folders to put your pictures in just for each league you have rather than all in one place. So I may this weekend, if I come on, if people reach out or something, if there's some other features you want to look at, I'll let you know. I haven't done a ton with the 2024 season only because we have this draft league. Definitely reach out on the YouTube comments if you'd like to be part of it. You know, we run uh, a league where it's an all-time greats where you get to keep players and then you get to keep certain numbers going year to year, and whatever year you get them in, you can take them forward or backward to the career. So really unique twist on it. We've got 20 some odd owners right now. We're in our seventh sim season in an actual calendar year. So we move things along fairly quick. You know, we're not doing head to head and that. We're, broadcasting a lot of the games that we do. And in a normal week, we pretty much sim a baseball month. So also got a football league, but it's a blast. But this edition, the chalkboard, for some people, it's not a huge thing. You're going to be like, yeah, it's the same kind of images and you see things moving around, but very subtle, but very noticeable changes where you can see different animations, the movement of the players, and it's playing pretty smooth right now. Trust me, there is a reason I want to see. Yeah, I can show you that. I got 2024, Sean. Tell me what team you want to look at. We can look at the Tigers. Here is their pinch hitters. I believe this was created by real life pinch hit opportunities versus lefty and righty is how they're going to be placed in that order. Because you can see right here, that order is not going to be based on the percentage they hit. It'll probably be on who had the most real life pinch hits versus left, and that'd probably be below. I almost guarantee you that. And that's how they're stacked, just like they uh, pinch hit in real life versus, of course, after you see how they did, you can kind of retro engineer that. Yankees, pinch hitter. There you go. So guarantee like versus lefty, I'll guarantee. It looks to me exactly like they probably lined up and how many they had because this is not cycled by like who had the better average against that. It's probably who had the most appearances. But if you wanted it to be different, no. But okay, let's try something else. I'm gonna make a backup of this and test it. We can see Stanton and Grisham are up there. So now if I back up this file, which is easy to do if you want to test, back up the current one. I'm going to call this one test. Now let's go do an experiment. On the test file, let's go to the Yankees. Here's one of the things you can do. You come up to your manager and hit preferences, player usage right here, real life. On a replay season, this is always valued, but instead go to player quality and then reset your depth and lineups. And that's what it did. It switched who it's going to put there based on running player quality. So, I'm not sure you want to always do that if you're trying to, emulate what happened in the real season, but like in our draft league for computer managers, that would make sense because if it is set up out of a stock replay, I can guarantee you that it's going to weigh on who played the most at positions or at bats, right? Under real life usage. So you can cycle back and forth and redo that if you want. But I would always, keep your clean file there and just make backups and play around with it. Anyway, I think this weekend when I get time, I'll come on with some more tips. I mean, I think an hour worth of some tips and walkthroughs good, and then maybe if there's some other things to highlight. But I know there's some things here that we enjoy seeing in our league, and I know some of the views on the teams being able to look at the info tab and the managed batters and pitchers is a nice view to see how we have roles assigned. So with that, say thanks for checking this out. And again, post if you're anybody interested in joining the league, post a comment under the YouTube video here, or if there's something else you'd like to see with the game or something you don't understand or a question like that, post it in the comments. And if I have time this weekend, come back on and highlight some of them. But again, I think I played about 5, 6 games with the released version, and I've seen the chalkboard work really well as expected. So thanks for joining.